What I'm about to tell you could put you in great danger. It could also save your life. There's a truth to the idea that what you don't know can't hurt you. In this case, one might say what you don't know is less likely to be able to hurt you. It's a chance I have to take. If you're the type of person who could be warned sharks exist without immediately diving into the ocean to try and find one, please keep reading. This is a story. I apologize for its length. I'll divide it into segments to make it easier to read. The story is necessary to give context to a warning. You might want me to skip directly to the warning. I can't. It wouldn't make any sense. You wouldn't understand the reasoning. Worst of all, the warning alone would leave you with too many questions, and you might stop prying further. As they say, curiosity killed the cat. Specifically, curiosity has killed at least 4 people thus far, but I'm getting way ahead of myself. I must first begin with my personal story. I think we're all familiar with a game called Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. It's the most celebrated, beloved, and just plain good games of its time. Everyone was playing it. Every video game news outlet was talking about it. One of my first online experiences was joining a message board for an Ocarina of Time fan site. It's a game ton of gamers know inside and out. And if there's one downside to knowing a game inside and out, there can be no more surprises. As a matter of fact, there can always be surprises. In a situation I imagine is most familiar to you, I was 16 years old, alone, in my living room, playing Ocarina of Time. I'd beaten it, caught the Skulltulas. I think I was missing a heart piece, but who wants to call up game facts when there's zombies to mow down on your horse? Just a peaceful night of skeleton smashing. And that's when I saw it. It was something that wasn't there before. No, something that was never there before. In the middle of the field, plain as day, an NPC that I'd never seen in the game. Just standing there, not moving. I was certainly surprised. Could it be? No, there's no way. That doesn't make any sense. There's never anyone out here. Of course, Ocarina of Time was still new enough that there was still the off chance that this was an in-game event. I did have the game nearly 100%. Maybe I'd unlocked something no one else knew about. Oh no, maybe it's just a postman. It can't be though. It's not moving. It's kind of floating. This was the point where I should have shut off the game. But of course I had to investigate. If this was a never-before-seen in-game event, I had to check it out. My excitement was tempered as I drew closer to this person. With every stride of my horse, it became increasingly clear something was wrong. The NPC was a girl, with red hair and a white dress, suspended slightly off the ground. She was completely motionless, not even a hair or clothes idly animating in the breeze. Her feet were together, standing on nothing, and her arms were stretched out far to her sides. The image immediately called crucifixion to my mind, which was unsettling. This was not helped by the fact that, on closer inspection, the girl had no face. She had a little polygon for her nose, but no texture. In fact, her white dress looked more untextured than intentionally white. The more I looked at her, the more she looked unfinished. Polygons on the back of her legs were missing, allowing me to see right through them. Attempts to talk to her or interact were fruitless. Blink and all other objects just flipped through. At this point, I'd come to the conclusion that she was just some bit of beta information the game had loaded up. I was big into digging up cool beta stuff from games, so this started making sense for me. The game had spawned an unfinished NPC, probably in place of the postman. No big deal. This would have been another good point to shut off the game. I kept playing, exiting and re-entering Hyrule Field. The girl was no longer there. I was already writing in my head the post I was going to make about this on Ocarina of Time. This was the age when it was kind of thrilling to see a guy goof like that, rather than just an annoyance. As the sun rose and the zombies fell away, I rode to find more adventure. Dinner time was still hours away. But as I continued to play, the game started to change on me. The first thing I noticed was the loading. N64 games traditionally had almost no loading, but suddenly the game was getting hung up on transitions between areas more than normal. Not long by today's standards, but a 5-second wait on the N64 was like an eternity. Secondly, when an area would load, the music wouldn't load with it. There'd be a period of silence, and then the music would kick in. It wasn't the right music either. The Hyrule Overworld was the most frequent to stop playing no matter where I was. The Gerudo Fortress theme also came up a lot. Notably, whenever I went inside a house or shop, there would be no music. At this point, it seemed like I was experiencing some kind of ROM glitch that changed when I decided to check out what music would play at Kokiri Village. The answer was none. No music played when I entered, and no music started no matter how long I waited. No ambient sounds either. That wasn't it though. Something else was wrong. There's no sound, but there was also no movement. All the Kokiri on a closer inspection were stuck in the same arms out pose as the mystery NPC. They didn't move or turn to look at me or anything. They stared straight ahead, arms out. I couldn't even talk to them. The speak prompt appeared, but pressing it didn't do anything. Rather strangely, they were all positioned roughly the same where they would be normally. The direction they faced was sometimes off, though. Some Kokiri were intentionally staring at a wall, or turned so that one of their arms clipped through the side of the cliff. It took a little time for me to register that the reason for this was they were all facing a single location. The mystery NPC was back. She was hovering a little off the ground in front of Link's house, every Kokiri staring at her. This time, she was different. She looked the same, but the moment I got near her, Navi started hovering around her, indicating that she was a real NPC. Trying to walk up to her and talk didn't work. The moment Link would get near her, he would take damage, and flew backward. However, this being the Ocarina of Time, I decided to try Z-targeting her and talking to her from a few feet away. Immediately, my frame rate dropped to single digits and the sound effects went chopping. In addition to the opening a dialogue box, a bunch of other weird sound effects seemed to be playing, high-pitched buzzing, and what I thought were some voice sounds from Princess Zelda. I was certain the game was going to freeze, but it didn't. Instead, a dialogue box opened and the girl said the following. "He's not moving anymore." "What? Are you happy? Sad? I can't really tell." "Looks like you're coming around." "That's an unpleasant mask. Goodbye." And the dialogue box closed. I had a strange, high-pitched sound effect, and the girl's model began to shake in place. I left Kokiri first. I ran. This would have been a very, very good time to turn off the game. From this point on, the game became less and less stable. Doors and transitions between areas no longer went to the proper place. I believe that upon leaving Kokiri Forest, I immediately appeared in the graveyard. The kid was there in the same arms-out position. Talking to him made him say the same thing he always says, but only once. After that, he ceased to be talkable. I won't summarize the next half hour, partly because I don't remember it all, and partly because it's a lot of the same stuff. Nearly every NPC I encountered was in the same position. Those that weren't were frozen in place, facing the wrong direction, or doing something else out of the ordinary. Enemies were non-existent or frozen. I encountered some Tektites frozen in mid-air on Death Mountain, which damaged me if I touched them, but couldn't be hurt themselves. As time went on, the game started falling apart. Whole textures of polygons would be missing. Sound effects would play a few seconds, but after disappeared. Pre-rendered backgrounds failed to appear entirely, and finally I was left in a black void. Well, not really, it was a black void. The location text said Marketplace. Apparently all the textures and pre-rendered backgrounds had failed to load. No music, no sounds. The Marketplace NPCs were there, strangely, not with their arms out as I had come to expect. They were animated normally and could be spoken to, however they all said the same thing. After which they would stop moving. "Please look out for the princess." After talking to the last NPC, the re-dead screen started playing. The model of the girl with the red hair appeared in some way, out in the void. Without animating, all the townspeople in unison turned to look at her. I think I lost control of Link at this point. The last thing I remember was him turning toward all the other townsfolk. He may have started to walk towards the two. He He let out a scream like he was being heard. This was a very, very good time to turn off the game, and I did. And that was that. I didn't play the game for over a month. When I switched it back on, there was no hint of oddness. Were this were a simple ghost story, this is where it would end. My one brush with the paranormal. Sadly, that was far from the end. This was my first experience with an entity we know as the Princess. As for who we are, I'll get onto that next time. And needless to say, there's no scraping model of a girl with red hair and a white dress anywhere in the code of Ocarina of Time.